Hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. Today we're going to be diving back into Alpha Transform. We're also here to answer your questions. I'm joined today by Sarah Mitchell, the Director of Customer Success. And today we're going to be doing another one in our series of newbie webinars for beginners on Alpha Transform. We're going to do another one next week. There is a schedule coming out shortly. It has been put together. And then after that, we're going to return to our Internet of Things discussion, a little bit more of a higher level topic. But let's get started today. Today, we are going to be taking a look at building multi-part forms. So now, what do I mean by a multi-part form? Well, here, let me give you an example. A multi-part form is a form that might have repeating sections in it, and definitely has got multiple sections in it that have got that contain different fields that you need to fill out. Right now, what we're looking at is an inspection checklist that comes from the Housing and Urban Development Department. And as you can see, it's got an awful lot of fields in here. In fact, if we were to take a look at this form, I think it's something like 15 or 20 pages long. And in fact, I'm going to show you an even longer form in a moment. Now, this is available as a PDF, so you might think to yourself, well, then why not just get a PDF filler software and install it on your phone if you wanted to do a mobile inspection? Well, that is in fact a terrible idea. The idea of having to navigate a form like that in its original format, pinching and zooming and clicking and all that, would be a very tedious and time-consuming way to fill in a form, which is why the better approach is to take a form like that and actually make it so that it's mobile friendly, like we've done here. In this case, we've taken the sections from that same housing and urban development form, and we have divided it up into different pages. We've divided that up into sections in the pages. We have things that are called repeating sections, or data groups, which I'm going to talk about soon. And the other thing is that it's possible for the user of the application to use a table of contents feature. So we're going to talk about those four things here today: sections and headings, pages, repeating groups, and the table of contents. So let's get going. So here is the other form that I was talking about. This one is an OSHA form, and it's used for inspecting oil rigs. And as you can imagine, there's lots of things that need to be inspected in a job like that. So here is just a screenshot of that, but let me just switch over to the previewer and we'll see if we can take a look at that form. Here it is. So this is the rig check form, and you can see it's divided up into different sections. There's a bunch that have to do with emergency, so emergency response, including a response plan, the equipment, alarms, fire extinguishers, and so on. So lots and lots of sections to a form like this. So the question is, can you take a form like this and reasonably shrink it down and get it onto a phone so that it can be filled in efficiently? And the answer is, yep, you sure can. So let me show you how you would go about doing that if you've got a giant form like this and you want to convert it into a format that is easier to use on a phone. So the first thing you would do is you would open up the form and you would take a look and you'd want to pull those fields out. And what I've done here is I've actually just taken them, each of these fields, rig number, name, date, location, all that. And I've gone through each one of the sections, well, at least of the first three sections. And I've taken all of these fields and I put them here into a text editor. So you can see right up here, the emergency response plan, that's the name of the section of the form. But we have all of these fields here underneath: the rig, name, date, location, EMS numbers, directions, latitude, longitude. I imagine this is an oil rig that could be out in the ocean, so a street address really wouldn't do you much good. Dialing instructions, how to get in touch with emergency personnel, and so on. So these go on and on. And if you'll notice that you actually, those questions aren't asked once, they're asked multiple times, because there might be multiple places on that oil rig. Like there might be the, I don't know, the main office, there might be the platform, there might be the, who knows, the dock. Whatever the different parts are of the oil rig may have different, you may have to fill this out for each one of the different sections. So how do you take a ginormous form like this? Well, what you do, as I pointed out, is first you grab all of the fields that you're interested in, and you just copy them right into the clipboard. And we're going to pop over here to TransForm Central, where we're going to build a new form. So here I am at TransForm Central, and I'm going to click on the Designer tab. And this will show me the forms that I've already have created. I have about 20, a couple dozen, I think. And they're going to download those, and they'll all appear here. This is the one that we're going to be working on, so I'm actually going to delete this, and we're going to rebuild it. Okay, and I'm going to click the plus button because I want to add a new type of form. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to say I'm going to add a blank form instead of selecting from a template, which is the other option you can do as well. So we'll choose Add New Form, and we'll call this TT for Transform Tuesday, Oil and Gas Safety, and Oil and Gas Safety. You're probably wondering, why do we have two different places to name your form? Think of this as the long name, the friendly name, and think of this as the short name that you might use later on when you're importing data or you're doing some programming or stuff like that. So you could leave it as form 1, but I like to give these form IDs. If you don't name it, it will give it a number for you, but I like to give it a unique form ID that I'll know what it means later. Okay. With that done, I'm going to now click the Input Quickstart Text button. And this is a very cool feature, I think, in TransForm. And if you recall, I've got on my clipboard all of the fields that I would like to include on my form. So I'm just going to paste them in here. And now when I go over here to the simple preview, they've all been created. So right now, if I wanted to, I could actually push this right up to my phone and fill out all of these fields. But we're going to make this a little bit easier to fill out because I want to tell you, I want to show you how you take a big long form and make it easier to navigate. So the first thing I'm going to do is just remove the spaces here that don't belong there. And some of these things aren't really fields, like the one that says emergency equipment inspection. That's really just a title. So I'm going to actually pull that one out. No, I take that back. I'm going to leave that one in. Let me go back to my text editor. It looks like I missed a couple of fields, so let me put those in here. Go back to Safari and paste those up here at the top. There we go. So emergency response plan is really just a heading. So we're going to turn that into a heading a little bit later. But then as we go through these fields, we could take a look and see they're all marked right now as text type of fields. And hey, that's fine. But for certain things, you're really going to want to be specific about the type of data that it's going to be held, because that will allow the interface to give you different types of things like a date picker, or in the case of location, to actually grab the GPS coordinates right from the mobile device. So to do that, I'm just going to assign the field names right here. Date is a date. So I just go over here to the quick reference and I use the little magic wand next to date, click on that, and that gets turned into a date field, as you can see here. Location, I'm going to go down to the location field, use the magic wand button again. And you'll notice all it does is actually just put in :date right here in my list. I could have literally typed that. It would have done the same thing, and it would have shown up just the same way in the simple preview. So let's do that for a couple more. I'm not going to make this form perfect today. Location, let's grab a location, and so on. And then let's take a look at, so location, oh, I'm sorry, I've done this wrong. Location is actually the name of location. I should have left that alone. Latitude and longitude is what I want to set to my location field, because that's literally going to hold the latitude and longitude. Let me correct that here. Copy that out. Okay. Now, we have all of these put together, and let's do a couple other nice things before we finish. One is these fields here, for example, is the the emergency service numbers current. Those are really just true or false values, or fail or not fail. So what I'm going to do, as opposed to making you type that in, is I'm just going to give you a couple of buttons to do that. So let's pop down here, see where it says yes, no. I'm going to use the magic wand, and you'll see I've turned this into buttons. So yes and no is fine here. I could say pass or fail or something like that if I wanted to, but that looks okay. Are the directions present? Yes or no? Yep. Are the dialing instructions present? Yes or no? Yep. And this latitude or longitude, I realize actually on this form, they really just want to know whether or not it's present or not. So we didn't have to go through all that GPS bother after all. So I've styled a couple of these fields. You can see it already looks a little bit different. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this. I'll push that up to the cloud. And if I opened it up on my form on my phone right now, you would see I would just have this long list of fields. So let's make this a little bit nicer and easier to navigate. So up here at the top, so I'm going to double click on here and open up the command view. And we'll see the first thing, emergency response plan. Well, that should never have been a field in the first place. So I'm going to actually copy that text. I'm going to delete it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the fields from here all the way down here, just holding down my shift key, and I'm going to select those fields. And I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to move down here and enclose it as a page. See page, and click the enclose button. What that does is it creates a start and an end page tag here. And the page title, we're going to call that Emergency Response Plan. Now let's click over here and see how that looks. It looks okay, but if you'll notice on a smaller phone size, and you can actually choose the different sizes here, on the small size, on the medium size, this is great, it all fits. But when I go to the small size, it kind of wraps. So I might not want to use a title that's quite as long as that. So I might say something like Emergency Resp Plan or something like that, just to make it fit nicely. And I can give this a color, which is often nice when you're doing pages, maybe because this is the response plan one, we want to make it red. And you'll see it styles it for us. Now let's go down to that next set of fields. This is the emergency equipment. Again, this isn't really a field, this one here. So I'm just going to copy that text, but then I'm going to delete that field. Don't need it. And I'm going to scroll all the way down here to comments. And I am again going to wrap that into a page. Okay, there's my page. Again, it's called page one. I'm going to paste in that title. Let's call that Emergency Equip Inspection. And the reason I shorten that is so that it would fit nicely on that button when it's viewed on a phone. And then the last section that we want is the alarms and shutdown inspection. I'm just going to go ahead and grab that. And again, I'm going to delete that field because it's not really a field. And I'm going to copy all of the comments here, and I'm going to highlight all of the fields here. I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to scroll down once again to that page section and click enclose. And I'll give this one a title as well. So we're going to call that alarms. Let's just do like shutdown insp. Hopefully that'll fit. Let's take a look. Yeah, it does. Great. So now that's all put together. And when I open up this form on my phone, what you're going to see is instead of all these fields, I'm just going to see 3 page buttons. So let me go ahead and show you that. I'm going to go ahead and click save. I'm going to click save to changes. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my phone. This can take a minute just because I need to join the same network that my computer's on. Oh, looks like I already am on it. That was lucky. I'm going to go share my screen. All right, good. That's working. Great. Let's open up TransForm. And I'm going to go back here. And because I have created a new form type, I'm going to click Add a Blank Form. And then up here it says, it wants me to. Okay, my screen hasn't refreshed here. So my phone is ahead of my computer. It looks like I'm having a little bit of a delay with that. Let me see if it catches up here in a minute. Hopefully it does. Okay, it looks like it has. Great. So what I did was I clicked refresh from server. That's because I wanted to get the latest and greatest form design, the one that I just created, onto my phone. So I'm going to scroll down, and it should be the last one. It's right there, and I'm going to click plus. And you'll see here is the form that I created. And now if I tap on one of these buttons, like the emergency response plan button, you'll see I've got all of the fields that are included there. Now, another way, if I had a whole bunch of fields and stuff, so that's how you divide things up into pages. But you might want to take a particular page and divide that up into sections. And there are a couple ways you can do that. So I'm going to actually go ahead and shut off screen mirroring. And we're going to go back to Transform Central, and I'm going to show you that. Okay, screen mirroring is off on my phone. It was just a little bit delayed here. So okay, there we go. So let's go into back into my form. And let's choose a good set of fields that after the date, let's just say these first three should be in one section, the rig, the name, and the date. In fact, they were, if you took a look, rig, name, date, at the original form. So you might want to put these together into a grouping. So we're going to go down to the emergency equipment inspection section, which is right here. And I'm going to grab these three fields. And now I've got a couple of options. One thing I could do is I could put them into a section. A section doesn't really do much, it just indents it. I'm going to show you what that looks like though. And you'll see that they've been indented slightly. Sections are used to separate out text like this, but they're also used, and this is going to show you in a follow-up webinar, when you want to create a responsive type of form, a form in which the fields move around on the screen depending on the amount of screen real estate. That's not a topic we're going to do today, but that's one of the reasons you'd use a section. I'm going to go ahead and delete this section, but keep in mind that because a section is like the page, it has a start and it has an end. If I delete the start and I don't delete the end, I'm going to have a broken form, so I need to delete both. So I'm going to click delete, and you'll see this has already given me a warning. This section end has no corresponding section start, so I'm just going to remove that. Now, something else we could do instead is we could insert a heading. So let's say we're going to do a section heading. I'm going to click section heading, and I'm going to say, let's call this primary info. That's not a great name, but that's what I'm going to call it, primary info. And now down here after and let's say that's going to include the rig, the name, and the date. And then these are the fields here are ones that we're actually going to fill in multiple times. But let's just add another heading to that. Plus heading, let's say this is another section heading. And the section heading is going to be called checklist items. So I'll click over here and you'll see that I've divided up into primary info and checklist items. These weird little bars, these little artifacts here, they don't actually show up on your form when you run it on the phone. I'm not sure why they're showing up right now. All right, so that's one way to divide it up. Now keep in mind, okay, so that's using headings. So the other kind of heading, and let me just go ahead, I'm going to remove those headings. Move that one, and I'm going to remove that one. The other type of heading is called a group heading, and a group heading is similar, it's just the style is a little bit different. So there's a group heading, let me just show you that, and then there is a section heading, heading section, and you'll see the group heading has slightly bigger text, the section heading has slightly smaller text. So if you want to visually break things up, you can insert these types of headings. Okay, let's remove those headings. Okay, so that's how you add headings. Now you've seen how to do pages. But the one thing I really want to show you is how you do repeating questions. And I'll show you what I mean. When I'm here on this form, that question, location, use, baskets, and the rest of these here, there's lots and lots of lines. You could fill this in over and over again for lots of different locations. But right now, the way I've got it set up is I can only fill in that set of form once, which set of fields once, which would mean that I'd have to maybe open up another form and do it a second time. That's no good. What we want to do is be able to ask those questions over and over again. So to do that, we're going to put them into a data group. Let's start up here at the first page, and I'm going to highlight all of these fields that I'd like to have in my data group. Now the rig, the name, and the date, if you recall, are only asked once, not multiple times. So I'm going to leave those alone. The ones below it, location through comments, I'm going to click on and I'm going to highlight. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to insert what is called a data group. So let's move down here, data group. Again, I can use the enclose button, which will put in the start and the end tags for me. So this is a data group. It's been inserted, and the data group is called item group 1. Well, let's just call this response plans. That's a better name. And the new message. So what's the new message? The message is, this is what appears in the button when you're going to add in a new line. So I'm just going to say something kind of generic, like add an item or add a line. And then there's a delete message, which it'll fill out for you. I forget what it says. I think it says delete response plan, but I'm just going to say delete line. Delete line. There we go. So those are there. So I've now created a data group. There's my start, there's my end, and I've given it that name. And I'm going to go ahead and save it, and we'll push that back up onto the TransForm cloud as well. And we'll take a look at it on the phone because it doesn't really show you it here in preview. The preview really is meant to show you what all of the fields look like, not necessarily how they will operate on your phone. So let me open up settings again, make sure I'm on the right Wi-Fi. Nope, I switched Wi-Fis, so let me switch over to the right Wi-Fi. Okay. It's searching. I have two Wi-Fis here in the office, and my phone always tends to automatically grab the other one. So, okay, here we go. I found it. Okay, so grab that one. And now I'm going to do screen mirroring. And hopefully my screen here should appear. Here it is. Great. Super. And we're going to go back into TransForm. Wow, this is really slow today. I'm sorry about that. And when this pops back open again, I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay. TransForm. All right. Well, it's caught up. Cool. So here's the emergency response plan. That's where we inserted the data group. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. And now you'll see I've got this thing called add line. So after I filled in the rig, the name, and the date, what I can do is I tap add line. And now I have all of these things that I can fill out. So for location, I'm going to say here, and yes, and no, and I'm sorry you can't see this, but trust me, it's working. When it catches up in a moment, you'll see that as well. Okay, dialing instructions, no. All right. So here we go. I filled this out, and you'll see I can now have the option down here to delete this set of questions, or I can add a new set. So if I clicked add new, you'll see I get another set, another line that I can fill out. Let me scroll it on my screen so I can show it to you. I should scroll up here in a second. There it is. And you can fill out these things over and over again. So that's how you mimic the behavior of having multiple lines. And you can have data groups. In fact, you can have data groups in data groups if you wanted to. So it can be a really a deep hierarchy if you choose to do that. All right, so let's go do a quick review. So when you're building out big multi-part forms, let's pop over here. When you're building out multi-part forms, let me close out my screen mirroring. Stop mirroring. There we go. You have the ability to use sections, which indent them. Sections are also used for responsive design, which we'll get into in another session. You have the ability to do headings, of which there are two types. There's the section heading, and then there's the group heading. The section heading is a little bit bigger, and the group heading is a little bit smaller, but allows you to visually separate the fields. You can divide your fields into pages. That's highly recommended. And you can include repeating groups, which we refer to as data groups, which lets you fill in multiple things. Ah, yes, there is one last thing that I wanted to show you. Let me open up my phone one last time. Hopefully it will work for us. And when that opens up, I'm going to show you something cool. Okay, what's going on here? Did it switch Wi-Fi's on me again? Let me take a look. It did. Sorry, while I switch to my other network. Okay, that's set. Screen mirroring. Screen mirroring. That looks like it should be okay. There we go. We're going to go back into TransForm. Okay. So this is the thing I wanted to show you. If you've got a form which has got thousands of fields, and there's no reason you can't put 1,000 fields onto a TransForm form, it'll still load, it'll still work and all that. But navigating them or finding a particular field might become a real pain in the neck. So up here, you see this little hamburger menu? I'm going to tap on that. What your user can do is they can choose this feature called Table of Contents. So I'm going to tap on Table of Contents, and you'll see I have got all of my forms here listed, and I can scroll through them just using my finger, and I can go through field after field after field. And when I get to a particular field, I just let go of my finger. It'll take me right there. Here, let's go back into the table of contents. Just one other thing I wanted to show you, and that is that if I move my finger, oh, it's not really catching up, but if you move your finger to the left just a little bit, it'll actually give you, showing it here, it'll actually give you a much faster way to scroll through the fields. So think of this as like a gross adjustment and a fine adjustment. So if you had to like switch down to section 32, you'd use this view, and then by moving your finger just a little bit to the right, it'll let you go back into fine control again. And again, once you find the field that you're looking at changing, you just tap on it and it'll bring you there. Wonderful. So I hope this has answered any questions you may have about how to design really big forms and put them into TransForm. If we have any questions, now would be the time to type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. And it doesn't look like it. Wonderful. Well, remember, if you do have any questions ever, go ahead and send them to TFService, as in Transform Service, at alphasoftware.com. I want to thank Sarah for joining me today, and thanks everyone for attending. I will talk to you next weekend, sorry, not next week, next TransForm Tuesday, when we go over, I believe we're going to be talking about designing responsive forms and doing layout. Until then, stay well. Take care. Bye-bye.